What up, my guys? Welcome to another show, man. It's NFL Talk with Jay Money and the Shark, my guys. The Shark is back like he never left with the nice Washington Commanders hat on. But yeah, today we'll be talking about the Thursday night football game, week 6 NFL picks, basically going rapid fire through all the games, guys. Are you ready? Let's get to it. What's up with you, Shark? Everything cool with you?
Absolutely. Taking a breath, back on here. I said earlier, 2021 on my show, I was so disoriented. Of course, people who follow my channel, a lot of craziness going on this week, unfortunately. The world we live in is a difficult place, but you know what's not difficult? Talk is NFL football with Jay Money, Thursday, October 13th, 2022. An opportunity to dominate. Jay, lead the way. Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's do it, man. So it's a nice little NFL game on tonight, man. Could be a snooze fest, could be some fireworks, right? But there's a game, people are gonna watch it, and there's definitely some things to learn as well, right, Shark? But let's get into it here, man. And also, guys, if you're watching the show, man, watching on YouTube, hey, check us out. Hit the like button, subscribe, share the show as well if you can, man. We're trying to get Shark's account back up there, trying to get as many people watching these shows, trying to put some cash in some people's pockets, man. So if you can. You send it on Twitter, man, retweet it, all this good stuff. But Shark, let's get straight to it, man. We got the Washington Commanders here, laying a point, basically -1. I mean, some maybe pick them, basically shop around. But you got the Bears here, basically home underdog here. They're sitting at 2-3, and the Commanders sitting at 1-4 here. Obviously, keep struggling. Probably should have won last week. I mean, they should have, right? Down first and goal at the 1, man, and you can't get it done. Obviously, with Wentz over there, a lot of going on with that team. Shark, how you looking at this game?
Yeah. Well, the bye hat is engaged on a Sunday not so casual Thursday, October 13th, 2022. As we're getting back engaged here, and you said it. You know, you're finding a team where we bought them multiple times, and I always say this: you got to stay the course. I think this is a perfect example of staying the course. And last week when I capped them to beat the Titans, there was one counterpoint to that cap. And of course, as we always say, this is NFL football. There's always a counterpoint. You get one game a week, all worlds collide in 60 minutes of fast-paced chaos. Mm-hmm. What was that counterpoint last week? It was purely the fact that Washington had showed signs of being unable to cover as an underdog. And it's the numerical average. And Jay, you had them in week 2 as a fade at Detroit. And the key point there was Detroit was laying points to Washington. And Detroit laying points was unheard of in terms of historical strength within this 2 or 3 year window. And of course, Detroit did hammer them. And then they came back home and got smacked up as a dog by Philly, went to Dallas as a short dog. And this is where the data dispersion became a bit clustered and a bit confusing because, again, in that game, they did outgain Dallas. Dallas really did bring the edge rush, and, of course, that has been the problem for the Commanders. Their offensive line has not been very good. Lack of a running game. Of course, they got their running back Robinson back last week, obviously off of a bit of a situation in the offseason. I think they will try to establish the run more this week. If you go back to last week's game against the Titans, they did not establish the run at all. Carson Wentz, 359 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. He actually had a good ball game. Mm-hmm. But, of course, as you said, when it came down to the finish, 3rd and goal, 1 yard, picked off. And it's partially scheme. Of course, not running the ball down deep will hurt you. The opponent can sit on pass, and there's not a lot going on there. But I think when you look at Chicago here, Chicago is 2-0 ATS at home. But week 1, they caught Trey Lance, obviously his only game of the year, and a monsoon to win. And they beat and covered by a hook or a push if you got 3. Against the Texans in week 3. This is where Washington functions well. They're 1-0 ATS as a favorite. They covered at home against Jacksonville in week 1. They find themselves here again as a favorite, and they are 0-4 ATS as a dog. We're buying it 1 unit. I'm at money line 115. -1 is also fine. But in these tight windows, you're paying 5 extra points of juice. I think the money line's the best player.
Yeah, that's a good point there. Yeah, I'm not gonna take Washington this week, so I know that you're gonna cash here, Shark. In all honesty, so I could definitely understand it. 2 teams, I'm not in a hurry to back right now, but I'm definitely not looking towards the Bears as well. I know that like average Joe bettors will look at this, obviously looking strictly to fade Washington, but they're gonna obviously look at the Bears. They're an okay team, right? Have an average defense as well, but it probably maybe a sharps versus squares type of game, but definitely one I'm staying off. I could definitely see I was going to say the Wizards, the Commanders get this one done, guys. If you can't, check out the chat as well. We got people dropping off sides, totals, player props as well, man. So the chat check it out, man. We really are a community, and post those plays as well, man. Any questions, any looks, post some things in the chat. We all trying to get some cash here. But any thoughts on the total tonight, real quick, Shark? And I did see that that like one of the most bet props is for Brian Robinson to get a touchdown tonight at plus 180. Could be huge. We know that they're down there. And they kind of spoke to what you're saying as well. Why would you try to throw a rinse? Try to pound the ball in there. Do you think that Robinson can get a touchdown, or you have any look on this total, my guy?
Yeah, I do like that. And again, I do think if you go back to last week, if you really look at the yardage split, I mean, they pretty much their entire game was in the passing game last week. And again, not having your running back for 3 or 4 weeks. And this he's a prime real estate product coming out of Alabama. I mean, this guy's a dog. So they're ready to put this guy into the game. But I think, again, just adjustment. It's a schematic adjustment. It's actually a league-to-league adjustment. Of course, this is his rookie year. And, of course, coming off really what is, not only a physical injury, getting into some sort of, shooting or something like that, and then also just the reintegration mentally in a professional sports. When you have something like that as an incident, you don't trust yourself on the field. And, of course, they didn't give him the ball that much. I believe he had 9 carries. There was just no sustainability with the running game. And I think they're going to make a conscious effort, albeit in a very short week here, to pound the run more. I think the total – I mean, you see totals in the NFL. They're very, very sharp. Of course, I did lose that one last week with the Bills total, which, again, it's 1,000 yards of offense, and they don't get over 45. Just insanity. And that's the craziness and the variance of totals in NFL football. I do think the sharp look here is on the over. I think people are quick to take the under when they think 2 bad teams, this, and that. Historically, on a short week, oftentimes the defense is far more fatigued than the offense. The offense is playing downhill. The defense is backpedaling, and they actually give up more points than less. 38 is a fairly stock number, but I do think when Washington plays more effective football, as we suggested in week 1 against the Jags, their only win and cover of the year, 28 points against the Jaguars defense that has been pretty representative otherwise. And, you go back to week 3, the last home game Chicago did play, 23-20, 43 points. Sharp look would be the over. I'm not on it. We're just on the side here.
Hey, that's some good looks there, man. Y'all listen up, man. My guy is speaking some facts there. I like definitely be the contrarian look. 2 bad teams can definitely go to the over as well. Looking at the Thursday night games, is definitely the offensive ahead of the defense is there as well, Shark. And like you said, when the Washington, if they're going to ball out, they're going to probably get closer to 28 to 30 points in this game as well. We saw last week where Justin Fields, at least in the second half, he was able to throw the ball downfield a little bit better. So actually would lean to this over here. Maybe you can see some points. And obviously the Thursday nights as well. We maybe just, and this is a low total as well for today's NFL, my guys. So definitely I'd lean to that over as well. The side, I could see the Commanders get it done, especially after Wentz being thrown under the bus on his coach as well. So I could definitely see him having something to show here. I know there was a stat that I saw today. Wentz has been pretty good on Thursday night football, is Thursday nights and just playing in prime time. So we'll see what happens if he's the opposite of Kirk Cousins over there, my guys. Let's go over here to the streets of Pittsburgh here, Shark. We got the Steelers getting 8 points versus the Bucs, man. I took the Steelers last week plus the 14 versus the top team in the NFL. They got their teeth kicked in. See what I'm saying? But they were moving the ball, just couldn't score. Couldn't get into the end zone there, Shark. So that over of yours definitely should have hit my play. I had the wrong side on mine, but that over definitely was the right play in that one, Shark. Buffalo took out their starters in the fourth quarter of that one, but now you have the Bucs here coming in lackluster ATS, Shark, laying 8 points on the road versus a terrible Steelers team.
Yeah, this is tough. I mean, I think we're just pretty much data deficient here. Obviously, Kenny Pickett, his second start, I mean, the first start was just a blowout. There's no way around it, but it was kind of misrepresented, actually. I mean, he threw for over 300 yards. They missed a couple field goals. They had a couple 4-and-outs. A lot of stuff going on here. You come back, his first home start, of course, he did replace Mitchell Trubisky against the Jets and really kind of pop off in the second half. I mean, we talked about this last week when we said we like the over. When Kenny Pickett came into the game picked up. A lot of yards, a lot of pace, a little bit more of a balanced offense. I think really what you're seeing here would be another theoretical buy to an over. Again, first look stuff here, guys. We're not making any of this official. But I do think you would lean towards the Bucs. I think if you really go through the calendar, the Bucs do come in here 0-3 ATS last 3. And you go back to early season, they were 2-0 ATS on the road They did open with a 19-3 win and cover as a road favorite, short favorite at Dallas. Of course, the pre-Cooper Rush days that was. And then in week 2, they did beat the Saints on the road 20-10 and cover as well. So again, theoretically, taking the name off the uniform, just looking at data dispersion, 0-3 last 3, 2-0 prior, both road as a favorite. They're getting back into that environment. And I do think Kenny Pickett, as much as he probably will be a playoff caliber quarterback in the next 4 to 5 years, I think this guy has a legitimate talent set that is very unique. I think he's a hell of a player, and he's going to really pop off in a positive direction. I don't know if it's going to come here, and I don't know if it's going to come against a very good Tampa Bay defense. I would lean Bucs. Don't love the game, but I do think the lean would be there.
Yeah, that's a good point there. It's a tough game for me. I do think there's some merit to the Bucs being so lackluster ATS this year. This team is taking a step back, and offensively it looks good because they have a lot of great receivers. But I don't know if necessarily Brady can get him the ball. He doesn't necessarily have that. So what Brady used to have, obviously Gronkowski with that tight end taking the top off and having the middle of the field open where defenses have to respect it. He doesn't have, and is really showing this year. So I just don't, and also I don't like the fact that they played 3 straight home games. Now they're going on the road for likely a couple straight games as well. So maybe they need to get out on the road, but I'm sorry. And Shark, their offense didn't even look good versus the Falcons defense in that one. They got up in that game and then basically had to, the Falcons came back and really had a shot to win that game. So I'm starting to get worried about the Bucs, especially with them laying points as well. Like you said, with them having to win by margin, just seems like they're doing just enough to run the football and do enough with their defense to win games. So I actually lean the Steelers here plus the 8. Obviously, they've looked terrible. So this is a game I'll watch closely to see if Pickett is improved. Because, I mean, this isn't – even the Bucs have a top-tier defense. Still not the Bills' defense, right? And he is at home. So a little bit better with the crowd. I'd lean towards the Steelers here plus the 8. They need a win in a worse way, man, or they might have to start losing games on purpose it might happen, man. But yeah, I'd lean to Steelers plus the 8 in this one, my guys. Let's go over here to the streets of New Orleans here, Sharp. We got the Bengals laying 2 on the road versus New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, first look here, I am looking at the Saints. A lot going on, but I do think just the situation for Cincinnati here is a difficult travel. Of course, primetime game against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. They did cover, but they did lose the game. And of course, professional athletes are not so much worried about covering spreads. And when you play a tight game like that, and of course, you had the lead in the middle of the fourth quarter and lose, now you have to go on the road again. You're going outside of the conference, outside of the division against the Saints, who, of course, did cover last week in a extremely high-scoring back-and-forth affair. Jay Money, 1 unit special. But I think if both teams are coming off of theoretical highs, because both teams did cover last week, and both teams did cover by 1 point. Snapshot to how tight NFL football is against the spread, particularly this year. I think taking the points at home here is probably the smart move. Not a lot of matchup data here, not a lot going on. I just think traveling from Ravens to Saints is more difficult than Saints staying home, Seahawks, and then catching the Bengals. And the last time the Bengals were playing in a situation similar to this on a similar number, it was, I believe, or actually it wasn't the same number, but they did lay an absolute egg against a backup quarterback situation in Dallas. And of course, we see Simba in the chat. Simba living high right now with the Cowboys fandom. I mean, this team is smoking hot. But I do think the lean would be Saints. Need to do a little more research on this one now.
Yeah, that's a good point there. The Saints might catch a win here, man. After getting a must-win game, I might add they shouldn't have struggled that bad versus the Seahawks, in my opinion. But they were also coming off that London game, so we knew the spot and the situation. Even though it was a must-win game, we knew that it wasn't necessarily going to be a blowout for them having like the jet lag and all the less time to preparation and all that good stuff. So I could understand the Saints lean here. And Shark, the Bengals have 3 really good games coming up in theory after. So say in theory they did lose this one, they got Atlanta, Cleveland, Carolina coming up next. They could definitely win 2 out of those next 3 of their ones. So not saying that they look ahead here, but coming off 3 really tough games, 3 straight covers as well. Obviously the Jets, that was a must-win game. Could see maybe a little down spot coming off a tough win as well. Shark, third road game in 4 weeks as well. 4th and 5 as well. A 4th road game in 5 weeks for the Bengals. Not necessarily buy-on situation, in my opinion, for the especially to be laying points with them on the road. Shark. Let's go over here to the streets of Indianapolis. Here we got the Colts getting laying 2 here. Shark versus the Jags, man, and I'll tell you, man, Jay Money. would love to go with the revenge game special here, but I don't take it every single time here, and it's not good that the Jags are coming off that straight up loss here, Sharp. What do you think? The Jags have shown that they could be elite. They've also shown they could lose to the worst team in the NFL as well. Do you think they can get a bounce back this week?
This is a tough game. As you mentioned, you want to buy the double revenge. Last year, Jacksonville did hammer them twice, 24-0 and 26-11. So you get a lot of incentive there, but I think the incentive is slightly contaminated by the fact, again, it's Matt Ryan at quarterback.
Sure.
And yeah.
No, I just want to say the Jacksonville, when Jacksonville beat them 24-0, that was this year. That was a few weeks ago.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, I'm looking at I have the whole sheet pulled down here. My bad.
No, you good.
Last year. But yeah, regardless, still get a double revenge game and you get an immediate revenge game. A huge point there. I just think when you're looking at Jacksonville, it's hard to figure out who Jacksonville really is because there's not a lot of a continuum or a trend to how they play week to week. I lost the bet last week because I saw how they played versus the Colts at home. And I thought, okay, this team's going to function very well in the division at home. And then they come back, same general position against Houston and play just an awful football game. And even within that game, though, you see a lot of what we talked about. And I was saying this on Twitter going back last week. I was saying it's the 0 or 7 effect. And what the 0 or 7 effect is analytics and 2022 football strategy. They've almost, not entirely, but they've eliminated field goals in so many of the smaller windows where to cover spreads, you need points at any point of availability. And now you're not getting it. You're getting 0 or 7. And you saw it last week. Doug Peterson, obviously going back to the Eagles, he was one of the first guys that was really ahead of the analytics curve. Of course, he's still coaching today. And you saw it last week. There were a couple down deep scenarios, particularly in the first half where they went 4 and out on like the 40-yard line and maybe even a little bit closer in the 30-yard line. And it's just this is where you don't cover spreads. And, of course, they did lose the game outright 13-6. But momentum is very real in football. And when you leave points on the table and you can't convert in plus territory early, it's really hard to fight back from. And that's really what happened. Indianapolis coming home here, obviously off a road win at Denver. Denver is just the most enigmatic team in the league right now. It's the talented roster being totally just withheld by a poor coach and a quarterback that may or may not be over the ledge here. I don't know. I talked to a couple of sharps earlier that really like the Colts. I think they like the revenge angle in the number, but I don't know.
Sark, you know what? And this is what I try to get to people to understand because they think that revenge game. It's revenge. Sometimes people say it's a lazy cap. You always have to look into the game, right? So I'm saying, okay, it could be a revenge game, but does that do you like the game before that or just matchup wise, or does the revenge game make you like it even more, right? I don't take it every single time. And also, Shart, something else that I'm learning, we always trying to learn, never feel like we know too much, always trying to learn, right? Learn more. I'm starting to figure out sometimes a team just owns another one. And I kind of feel like, not that they own them, but I feel like the Jags might just have the Colts number. In all honesty, and we saw that in 24-0, right? We saw the Colts last week win a game versus a lackluster Broncos team with Russell Wilson has an injured shoulder, right? So we understand why the Colts won that game now, and they still struggled in doing so. I was kind of high on the Colts coming in on this year, but I must say, man, I keep dropping them in the power ratings here, Shark. So they're not in a must-win situation. I think the situation actually sets up for the Jags here. It's not good that they already beat this team 24-0, but now being insulted by their own quality, like you always say, Shark, now they're the team that's coming in pissed off. They already have the Colts number as well. So in theory, Colts should want a revenge, but they also got a big revenge game versus the Titans on deck as well. So I don't think the Colts are that good, in my opinion. I don't know if they'll have enough offense to keep up with the Jags as long as they're clicking on all cylinders, Shark. But that's the whole thing. Will they be clicking on all cylinders? But I actually heavily lean Jags plus the 2 here.
Yeah, I'm looking at it a little bit deeper now. I'm just thinking about the line functionality within the division, which is the only scenario where it really does apply in NFL football, of course, 2 times a year as opposed to once every 4 years. I do believe in that week 2 matchup, the Colts were laying 2.5 points on the road.
Right.
So now you come home shorter. It should be 4.5, 5.5. This is a short line. And again, you saw what Jacksonville did on the road at San Diego. That was an authoritative win. Of course, week 1 loss at Washington, and slightly later on, a non-cover at Philly. So now if we actually go into the trends here, what do we have? We have them 0-2 ATS at the NFC East. And we have them showing sustainability or at least some sort of agreeability on the road ATS otherwise, I would agree with you. Actually, as a free play, I probably would lean the Jags.
I like the Jags here. Look, coming off 2 straight losses as well. Now I'm looking. So you're coming off a tough loss versus Philly, right? We're just talking something out here, guys. That you were up 14-0. You end up losing a game. That's a tough loss. I mean, they thought they were about to go 3-1, right? So you faced the Texans at home. It was a tough spot to get up for that game. Now I think we see them come back with some juice here and say, all right, look here, guys, we really are good. We took 2 straight losses. Get back on it. And we fucking on the Colts. So let's get back. I think what 6-0 against the spread last 6 versus the Colts, and I really think it's even stronger, Shark, because those were much better Colts team and much worse Jags teams. You see what I'm saying? This is the best Jags team they've had in a while, so I might get there with the Jags. I know we're talking out loud. I might get there plus the 2, and you make good points, Shark. They were laying 3. The Colts were laying 2.5, 3 on the road. Now they come home laying 2. It's not good, man. I think the Jags might have their number there. Let's go over here to the streets of Cleveland here, Shark. We got the Browns here. The Brownies land 3 versus the Patriots here, man. I'll tell you one thing. I'd like to see Mac Jones come back in this game, my guy.
Yeah. What is he supposed to come back? I haven't been following that.
A couple of limited practices. They say he has a chance. It's not. Let's just say if Zappy's in, that may be good for the Patriots. If Jones comes back, I think they would say it's Browns for sure. But yeah, it's possible they come back.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to look at in this game. I'm a little bit afraid this line is very sharp. I do think if you go back to what the Patriots did on the road at Pittsburgh earlier on this year, they were laying 2.5, 3, and they won the game by 3 points. And we've talked about this just about every single week on this show. Is that the league right now is there's just a high level of parity. There's just a lot of teams that are very, very close to each other in terms of skill and expectancy. And that's very much integrated into the ATS line numbers, where you see these lines that are field goal lines. And that's just right where the game ends up. Right. And, we talked about this, I believe, 2 weeks ago when we said there were 15 games and 13 out of the 15 games had a line inside of 4 points. I mean, that's incredible stuff. I mean, this is historically high level of parity in the NFL. It's not usually like this. There's usually a little bit more separation in the teams. And now you see it's just the direct opposite. Patriots laid 3 at Pittsburgh, won by 3. Now they're a 3-point underdog against Cleveland. Again, I don't love either side of this game. I'm honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this was dead on a 3 if Cleveland came by 3 points. Right. And you do get a Cleveland revenge game. Last year, Cleveland got absolutely hammered against the Patriots, 45-7. Mac Jones went nuts against them. Of course, that was a bit of a funky game for Cleveland. Baker Mayfield got hurt. Case Keenum came in. So a lot of moving parts. Of course, it was not Jacoby Brissett. It was not Deshaun Watson waiting around to play in a few weeks. A lot of different elements here. Moral of the story for me in this one, I want Cleveland. I like the Cleveland number. I like the environment for Cleveland. I just think this could be crazy sharp.
Yeah, it looks like Bill Belichick has loved playing up against his old squad there, man. The Patriots are 5-1 versus the Browns all time and 4-2 against the spread. In those 6 games, they played 2007, 2010, 2013, 2016, 2019, 2021. So they basically play about every 2 to 3 years there. And Belichick usually has a good game plan every single time. Like you said, last time 45-7. But these are 2 completely different teams. You could argue this is the worst Patriots team over that stretch. You could argue this is one of the better Browns team over that stretch as well. Obviously Brissett used to play for the Patriots as well, so maybe Belichick has a little info on him, but still, man, the Browns are coming off 2 tough games in my opinion. 2 games where obviously they should have won. You should have beaten the Falcons. You had 2 chances to beat the Chargers there, guys. And I told you last week, the Chargers are better than we think. I was going to call them the Cavs. The Browns play really good there. So you got the Patriots coming off a 29-0 shutout win, right? But they were coming off 2 straight losses. So that was their must-win game. Now you got the Cavs, the Browns, you see what I'm saying, coming off 2 straight losses. Now you get them in the must-win spot at the house as well. I'll tell you what, I'm keeping an eye on Mac Jones. I'd love for him to be announced in. I'd love for this to go down to 2.5. and then we could get that win by the half-point shark with the Browns here. I like the Browns here. I'm keeping my eye close on this one, but in all honesty, I think even if Zappe on the road here, regardless, I think this is a Brown spot. In all honesty, we'd like to see them get Gary back, get the 2 pass rushers back to put Zappe on his ass, but on the road can be a tough start for a rookie quarterback. Just asked Pickett last week there. So heavy lean to the Browns for me. Keeping an eye on it. If Jones is in, it will definitely go down to 2.5, my guys. And it's smarter bet, right, Shark? But let's get over here to the streets of Green Bay here. We got that cheesehead, but got the Packers here laying 7.5 versus the New York Jets, Shark, coming off the London trip.
Yeah, tough game. I do think the lean for me would be the Jets. I'm just not a fan right now of this Green Bay franchise laying over a touchdown outside of the division. Of course, they did cover a big line in week 2, but that was against Chicago. And that's just a team that Aaron Rodgers has owned over the course of his now, I believe, 15 or 16-year career. Impressive stuff from our guy Aaron Rodgers there in terms of sustainability. But, you look at what they did against the Patriots in the lead-up game to the London game. A non-cover, a real tight one on a big line. Last week in London, same thing, outright loss on a big line. Now they come back, they lay it to the Jets. Jets, honestly, we don't really know how good the Jets are, but in limited work, they have looked good with Zach Wilson. And I just think, as a very loose comment on this game, because I don't love this game, I just think people need to readjust their expectations, because people oftentimes cap this and say it's Aaron Rodgers. This is not Aaron Rodgers and his top guys from yesteryear. I mean, obviously Devontae Adams no longer there. We talked about this in early season when we faded them, and we said this guy had, I believe, 126 catches last year, something like that, maybe a little higher, 140, something like that. And it's just the ability to have that flow. Of course, Alan Lazard has stepped in reasonably well, but there's a lot more to the game of football than just 2 players. And I think this line is just a little heavy. It's a little inflated. I would lean the Jets. Don't love the game, though.
Hey, the Jets coming in 2-0 on the road here, Shark. Be interested to see if they go 3-0. This kind of feels like the Saints game to me last week. Not in a hurry to lay the points with the Saints, but the spot sets up well. And I believe they lost the game as well. I could see this coming out the exact same way, being a tight type of game as well. My whole thing with the Packers is they had that game. It kind of seems like, I don't know. I mean, who knows? Maybe a little conversation at halftime there, but literally just stop playing football there. They could have literally blown the Giants out. Giants had 4 receivers in the game, Shark. In all honesty, man, they weren't their topper. It's probably like their 3 through 7 receivers they had out there. Top 2 to 3 guys were definitely out. So who knows what happened with the Packers last week? This could be the bounce back week, though. Jets coming off 2 straight wins, a huge win last week, I might add. I mean, it's not that I'm undervaluing them. They are playing a lot better. They're balling out, especially with Zach Wilson. But the Packers could do what they want in this game. So it's all about if they're focused, if they want to win, if they want to smack them up, they will. If they don't want to, obviously their defense could. Shark, I just want to talk about this real quick. Defenses coming off the London game have not fared well. We know that they usually get a bye week as well after the London game. They're not getting it this year. What do you think about that?
It's a very valid point. As you mentioned, teams have not traveled well in the game leading up to London or coming back from London. I mean, we don't have the psychological awareness of really how big of a deal that is. I mean, I personally never traveled to London, and I've never done it in a time frame, and I certainly haven't done it playing professional football and getting my head smashed in, you know what I mean? So you just think about how much of a travel that is. I mean, it's a long flight. There's a lot of cultural gap there too, a lot of exploration. I mean, I remember when we were listening to the Saints talk about it, Mark Ingram was talking about like the team coming together. It's like a different world almost. Right. So you come back, you reintegrate. And as you said, the defenses oftentimes travel worse than the offenses.
Yeah, that makes sense there. I lean to the Packers there. They were a little too hot, won 3 straight. Then they lost one, basically got insulted. I feel like the fact they only scored 2 points in that second half was really horrible in my opinion. So I could see Rodgers and the guys come back like, all right, man, let's get back on the road here. But they are laying a hefty price. So if they win by 7, on that 7.5, 8, you don't get the cover there, my guys. But I still lean Packers for me in that one. I think if their heads are screwed on right, they should be able to run the ball, play enough defense to get a 10-point win out here. Heavy lean to the Packers for me, Shark. Another team, the other team here, Sharks, go to the streets of New York here. We got the Giants getting 5 points versus the Ravens. Giants sitting at 4-1, right? I feel like a lot of people are going to hop on them. They saw something good last week. Now they come home riding high, right, Shark? I don't necessarily like the spot for Giants. I'll tell you what I do like. I like Ravens, and I think I might have to hop on a trifecta team total here, Shark. It's basically fading that defense of the Giants coming off the London game and coming off of a high, right?
Yeah, let's try this again. It didn't work last week. Let's try it again. I think this is going to be a Ravens spot. I think what you're looking at here is, as you mentioned, Giants coming home off a gigantic high. Obviously, an outright win in London against the Packers. And the Giants starting to show trends, very sustainable trends, actually. The Giants are now 2-0 ATS and 2-0 straight up on the road at a touchdown or over underdog status. Obviously, week 1 outright win at Tennessee, which we had correctly. And then last week, Jay and I disagreed. I had said I thought the Giants would get there just because of that functionality versus the Tennessee game in week 1. But if you look at their home games, this is a key point. They've had 3 home games this year already. They laid 3 points against the Panthers and pushed. They laid about 1.5, 2 against the Cowboys. We're up 7 points in the third quarter and blew it and lost. And then they laid 3 again against the Bears, which Jay had correctly, and did cover. But it was close. They won the game by 8 points. So it was a touchdown game. This is the first time they've been an underdog at home all year. And you go to the other side of this, you find Baltimore where they've performed very well. I had Baltimore to cover against the Jets in the same stadium against at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford in week 1. You had the Ravens to cover in New England in week 3, I believe. So Baltimore outside of the division is 2-0 ATS with 2 pretty authoritative wins. And you do get this good buy low element from Baltimore where they're coming off of 2 straight non-covers at home, actually a push against Buffalo, but equally deflating because they probably could have won that game. So 2 kind of lackluster efforts and also 2 lackluster efforts scoring the football. And what you saw what they did against New England in Foxborough, a lot of points, 36 points against a defense that just shut out the Lions.
Right.
So that tells you the quality of offense Lamar Jackson and these boys are capable of putting on record any given week. And the Giants, truthfully, have played great defense at home. I mean, giving up 16, 12, and 23. I think this game is going to have more points. I think it's going to be the Ravens doing what they've done already twice this year on the road as a favorite. And again, you mentioned with the Giants, it's just tough travel. You have a London game and a win. You come home from 1 out-of-division game, and you go right back on the road next week for Jaguars and then another road game at Seattle. We're probably looking at this around a 1-unit play. We'll drop officially on Sunday morning.
Yeah, I'm looking towards the Ravens here, guys. I like how the spot sets up as well. Coming off a tough game as well, but they got to keep it going. But this is definitely be a fate of Giants. I mean, it's not bad. It's good that they're riding, that they're playing good football. That's good, but mainly with the travel, right? If their last week's game was somewhere in the United States, it may not be that bad of a spot. But the fact that you went all the way over, a huge comeback win as well. Know that they probably celebrated that one real nice on the plane ride back. And it's just simple. You want to fade the defenses. The team totals are for overs are 2-0 versus the defenses coming off the London games, guys. They're not getting a week of rest like they should be getting. It's a fade of the Giants defense here. I know the first quarter is not out yet, but I'm pretty damn sure I'll be on Ravens trifecta team total over first quarter, first half, full game. And the second half is really when the defense really runs out of gas. So I think the Ravens, they probably get to 30 points in this game, do whatever the hell they want, in my opinion. As long as they want to. So looking for it might be a double trifecta spot for the Ravens here, man. Definitely let you guys know, keep you updated with that. But just trying to let you know where our heads are at and how we're looking at the games. It's up to you to make that decision what you like, man. But let's go over here to the streets of Miami here, Shark. We got the Dolphins here getting the 3 points versus the Vikings here. Dolphins look like they're going with Skylar Thompson at the quarterback here. Obviously, Bridgewater and Tua is still a little banged up here. But how are we looking at this game, my brother?
Well, this is tough. Obviously, when you have a third-string quarterback in there, you would lean to fade. I think what you've seen from Zappe with New England, that's much more of the New England coaching staff knowing how to just mold a third stringer quickly into a scheme that is highly, highly sustainable over 20 plus years. You look at the Minnesota Vikings coming in here. I mean, really, this is kind of just a one-off game. There's not a lot of connectivity within this game. It's not a divisional game. It's not a rivalry game. They're not coming off losses. They're not really coming off of any sort of impressive ATS spots either. It's kind of just an absolute one-off. And why wouldn't it be a one-off down in South Beach? You know, of course, it is North Miami, Florida, I believe, Hard Rock Stadium. But regardless, I would lean the Vikings here if I had to make a comment. If you look at what the Vikings did, their only true road game of the season in week 2 at Philadelphia. At that point, I don't think people knew Philadelphia was going to be this good, but Philadelphia absolutely hammered Minnesota in what was at that point in time a letdown spot for Minnesota, as they had crushed the Packers in week 1. And also Kirk Cousins is just, for whatever reason, abysmal on primetime games. But that was their only true road game of the year, so you can't necessarily cross-reference with that. You look at the last 2 weeks. Both games were hook non-covers. In London, I believe they were 3.5, maybe 4 in some books. They won by 3 non-cover. Last week, way up in the game, blew it and pushed back to not cover, -7.5. Won the game by 7 points. So it's sharp stuff, but I don't think you can really justifiably back a third-string quarterback. Skylar Thompson, I just looked it up, out of Manhattan, Kansas State University. And
I know who he is. He made me some money in college football, man. It's a tough game for me, guys. I'll tell you this right now. This is a game that I kind of just go back 5 or 6 years ago when I was an amateur bettor, and I kind of look at how would I look at this game. I'd look at the info. Oh, okay, the 2 quarterbacks are out for the Dolphins. I'll just go take the Vikings. Simple. You see what I'm saying? Sometimes half the time I'd win. I'd say 40% of the time I win, the other 60% of the time I'd lose, and I'd be scratching my head, saying the game's fixed, wondering what the fuck's going on. You just got to know that sometimes when the injured player's out, there's an injured player theory. And sorry, I just want to take a snapshot to this, bro, because this shit used to never happen, right? Injured quarterback out, you're gonna smash the team. I want to take you to the psychology of these players these days, right? They're young guys. It's a new generation. We'll call it millennials, whatever the hell. There's this level of complacency where you know that these guys are out, right? Sorry, if you're the Vikings, you know that you're facing a third-string quarterback. What do? You come in this game not giving your best effort. You're not, and I'm not saying that I'm taking the Dolphins. I'm just taking you a snapshot of how I look at these games and the new age sports, right? You come in looking at the game, it's going to be easy. We don't have to play our best game. It's going to be easy. So I just feel like complacency before a game sets up these teams for a letdown spot. Like you say, Shard, what P. Diddy in the locker room, when you're coming in the game thinking that it's going to be easy, you're not going to play your best. You're probably going to play down to your opponent. And so I guess all that saying, I lean the Dolphins here. They're coming off 2 straight losses as well on the road. They're back home now, in theory, in a must-win spot. Not saying that they are going to win, but in their mind saying, we got to fucking get a win here, right? You got the Vikings, 3 straight wins, 4 straight non-covers. So they've been hovering around, teetering around, losing these games. Should have lost to the Saints as well. Their defense kind of started to catch up with them, with the Bears coming back in the second half. I can see the Vikings looking like they did, not as bad versus the Eagles, but I can see them looking lackluster here in this game, Chart. So I said all that to say that I'm really starting to see these are the type of games that I just like to stay off of, Chart. But what do you think about this psychological part, the P. Diddy angle?
Yeah, I mean, of course, in NBA basketball, it applies very, very fluidly. The Sirach on ice model, which, of course, we've been talking about for years. But in professional football, I think it could go one of 2 ways. You know, of course, you look at what the Bengals did against Cooper Rush in his first game, and obviously Cooper Rush catching every opponent napping, it seems. Then you do look at what Miami did last week at the Jets. The Jets hammered them and hung 40 points on them. So hard to figure out. Of course, we say this every week. You only get these one-offs once a week. Not a lot of matchup data here. Of course, that was a rivalry game. The Jets were in, I believe, a quadruple revenge environment, so peak divisional motivation there. I don't disagree at all. I think you're spot on to the psychological element of this game. The only thing from a more statistical manner that I do look at is the Vikings are actually 0-4 ATS in their last 4 games. They got blown out at Philly, did not cover a home divisional game against the Lions, did not cover in London, and did not cover a home divisional game against the Bears. So if we really kind of look at the actual situations here, their last 3 games were kind of funky. You get 2 divisional home favorite spots against the bottom feeders in your division. Did not cover either of them, so we can toss that out. That's not Miami at all. I know in a London game, we can't play that here at all either. And at Eagles, Kirk Cousins in primetime, ultra-specific fade. We got to throw that out too. So now we get a total unique environment. We get a 1 o'clock start out of the division where theoretically from a statistical manner, 0-4 should improve a little bit. I think last week they showed signs. If you remember the game against the Lions, they were actually down in that game 24-10. They played a really lackluster game there. Last week was actually the polar opposite. They came out and hammered Chicago early and then gave it back. And I think that does suggest theoretically maybe a bit of a more focused point going forward. But as you mentioned, obviously trying to buy a team and their motivation versus a third-string quarterback can be very difficult.
Facts. Yeah, I guess I said all that to say that really, usually I guess I started to just kind of stay off the game because you never know what you want to get. You like to take the team, right, that's in that spot, but it just sometimes it really is like literally seems a little too easy. And last thing I got to say about this one, the heat could kind of affect Minnesota, right? They're kind of up there with the colder weather. When you go down to Miami, the visiting bench is in the sun, literally the whole game. So you're going to be cooking. Not everyone necessarily likes that shit. So that's the last thing I'll say about it. I'm not betting the Dolphins, guys, but that's just gotta. We're just talking some shit out here, my guys. Let's go over here to the streets of Atlanta here, Shark. We got the red hot ATS Falcons 5-0 against the spread, getting 5.5 at home versus the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, this is going to be tough, as you mentioned. 5-0 ATS and just insane stuff, really. If you're looking at it, this is now 2 out of the last 4 games, big-time backdoors. I believe they were down, 21-0 to the Bucs and came back 15 late points to outscore them 15-0 to close the game and cover. Same thing in week 2 at the Rams, where we had them. Rams were up 28-3 and don't cover 31-27. So they outscored them 27-3 in the back end of the game. And that's just, what you're finding in these positions. Obviously, those are both road games, but you come back at home. You've seen what they've done. Week 1 against the Saints, we've talked about this now just about every week. The Saints with quarterback ambiguity, inconsistency, and of course, Dennis Allen probably not being a great NFL head coach from a motivating standpoint in the locker room. And then the game against the Browns, which I had officially, I think you might have had it too, just ridiculous from the Browns. I mean, again, going down deep on the first drive of the game, going 4 and out at the goal line, a couple plus zone turnovers, another 4 and out, just a lot of nonsense going on here. And you find this team now really at a ridiculous 100% cover rate through 5 games where, truthfully, a lot of things had to go right for them in small windows to get those covers. This is not a team that's just demolishing people against the spread. Backdoors, one-off possessions going their way when they need something specific. This is where you want to fade. The only hesitation I have here is that the 49ers are in a weird spot. Back-to-back road games in the same division, NFC South, off a blowout at the Panthers. Obviously, the Niners are far more classy than the Falcons, but you do ask yourself a question. How easy is it to back up a road blowout with another road, not necessarily blowout by 22, but over a touchdown? I said this last week. I think the Falcons are going to potentially crater ATS. I just think it might come slightly later on this season.
Yeah, I could see it. And I mean, the Niners have the Chiefs on deck as well. So, I mean, you could argue it's tough to say look ahead when you're playing week to week, but these teams, they circle games, man. I'm telling you this. People, I didn't used to want to think this either, but literally NBA players as well, when they get a calendar, there are certain games that they know that they're going to get up for and other games that they just don't care about. So I'm not saying they don't care about this game, but when you're facing the Chiefs at home the next week, I mean, there's a possibility for a look ahead, guys. So I agree. The Falcons keep getting lucky. At some point, they're not going to cover a spread. It's just, will it be here? It's a tough game for me. And I do feel like the 49ers have a really good defense. Somewhat the offense isn't really potent here. So the whole thing was, will they have it? But the Falcons defense isn't the greatest as well. So it could make the 49ers offense look a little bit better here it's a tough game for me. I guess with the Falcons playing 3 out of 4 road games, then come back to the house. In theory, I'd like to take Niners here, but don't like their opponent up next, guys. So it's not a game I'll be touching. I mean, I understand why people are betting the Niners. It's just that I'm not on it here, but I couldn't talk you off Niners. Let's go over here to the streets of LA here, Shark. This line was at 11.5, got up to 11.5 with the news that Baker Mayfield is going to be out. Maybe it should have went down, but maybe I think some sharp money started to come in on the Panthers after they finally fired Matt Rule. I believe I said that last week that he was going to get fired after the game as well. But what you think about this one, Shark?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that just the general idea of buying a team when their coach is fired the next game is a very strong idea because, of course, coaches really do hold rosters back. I mean, I think that's one of the mostly neglected things when people look at games. People don't really understand just how much of an effect one man can have on a group of 53. This Matt Rule guy, he's a college coach. He's just not a leader of a professional unit. No way around it. I was listening to the post game. Remember, we talked about this off the record a couple of weeks ago, and I just couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, this guy, his speech is it was just rambling. It was just very disconnected. And you could just see the locker room probably rolling their eyes. Like, what is this guy even talking about?
Right.
And of course, he's fired now. I believe Wilkes replaced him. He used to coach the Cardinals. Not sure how much that really affects anything here. You look at the Rams. I mean, the Rams have just been purely lackluster, and you saw what the Rams did early on against the Falcons, of course, up 28-3. If you wanted to maybe look at the first half with the Rams as a corollary to that game, what they might do here. Of course, last week against Dallas, they came out in that game and they were pretty much out of the game in the first 10 minutes of the game. And I do think as a bounce back to that, they might come out pretty pissed off in the first half here. But, of course, the back door is wide open with this team.
Exactly. That's a good point. I mean, I've been thinking the Rams going to come out pissed off for a few weeks here now. Now, we just hadn't saw it. So I do know that the Rams aren't the same team. I did think that they still had that ceiling, right? Like they could still get there. We always talk about as well when you win a Super Bowl that there is a little bit of an adjustment for you coming off. And you know what I'm saying? You coming in these other teams, they're ready. They've been working all season thinking about this, whereas you had a long-ass offseason or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So it's a tough one for me, man. Can the Rams get back to that Super Bowl type of team? We're not seeing it right now. It's Cooper Kupp, and everybody else right now, man. The defense isn't really even playing up to par, in my opinion. So it'd be interesting to see what happens in this one. I agree with Shark. In theory, you'd like to buy the team coming off like with the coaching change, but the Panthers they're in disarray right now. So both of these teams in disarray. I'm definitely not laying 10 with the fucking Rams, man. Screw those guys over there. But what do you think about PJ Walker with Shark? Because obviously with the quarterback change as well, new coaching change and quarterback change as well. So what do you think about maybe being addition by subtraction without having Baker Mayfield a little ass out there?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that. Baker Mayfield quickly proving week after week that he was overdrafted by, maybe 35 to 40 picks. I mean, you hate to say that because you're not shading a guy. You're just looking at his own ability and the product he's put on there. But I mean, this kid was drafted number 1 overall, and I mean, that is just beyond a reach. And he just never been great. I mean, there's just no way around it. I'm looking at PJ Walker. Can't say I'm overly familiar with this guy.
He's been over there for a while, though. He's been over there with the Panthers for backup for a while. It's got to be at least 4 years now, I feel like.
I see it now. He went to Temple. Okay, so Temple product out of New Jersey. My guy.
How long has he been there?
Well, he's 27, so it looks like he's been in the league since
like 5
2017. Yeah.
Yeah. I can dig it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not versed on this quarterback, so I don't really have any comments here. But I do think again, Rams theoretically, it's not even so much that they're that pissed off. I think it's just the last week was just such an insult. We talk about NBA teams, home game 1, they come out flat. Home game 2, they get ready to go. And the first half is a total reversal of the previous game. I think first half here, Rams could be a good look.
Yeah, maybe have to look at a team total or something. I've been starting to get into some of these team totals, first quarter, first half team totals. Didn't work out versus the Cowboys, but Panthers is nowhere near that type of caliber of defense, my guys. Let's go over here to the streets of Seattle here. We got the Seahawks, we got the bird gang. 2 birds going at it here, man. The Seahawks, I wonder how many feathers we're going to have left over after this one. Seahawks getting 2.5 at home versus the Arizona Cardinals here, Shark. How are we looking at it?
Yeah, we got the bird gang, bang, bang, bird game at 8:20 p.m. I know Simba doesn't want to hear that. But staying on this game I'm looking with significance at Arizona here. And, we keep talking about this, but for whatever reason, Arizona just doesn't play great football at home. And it's fairly sustainable. I mean, they did cover last week against the Eagles, and they almost tied the game late. Of course, a missed field goal, but the result stands for itself. They're 0-3 straight up at home, and they are 2-0 on the road. So that's a direct split. And you look at what's going on here. The Seahawks just come in here in a fairly brutal spot. Obviously, 2 straight road games, 2 straight really tight road games as well, I might add. An outright win at Detroit. Game approached almost 100 total points. And then last week, right on the number, I believe 30, 39, 32 or something like that at the Saints. Saints did get there late, I believe. But regardless, 2 very high scoring, high paced, emotionally draining back and forth style of road games. You come home and you get a divisional opponent coming in here, and you just get where Arizona functions very, very well. And one final point on this, if you go back prior to this road sequence for Seattle, Atlanta did come in here and lay points, I believe 1.5 at close, 1, something like that. And Atlanta, who in my opinion is far worse than the Cardinals, did get them 27-23. Week 1, obviously Denver came in there and did not cover, but Denver again is just really unprofessional on all formats right now. So I think if you look back as a corollary to what Atlanta did in there and Arizona's sustainable week to week in and out, you would want to take Arizona here.
Yeah, that's a good point there. Arizona's definitely been playing a lot better on the road as well. What do? It's crazy because this is what they've done all year. They started at the house, get smacked by KC, which I mean, anybody can get smacked by KC. You go on the road, get a win, huge comeback win, I might add. They were getting smacked. Come home, lose versus the Rams. Go on the road, get a win versus Carolina. Come home, lose versus the Eagles. Now, I'll tell you this, Shark, if they play the way they play versus the Eagles, I'd lay 6.5 with them in this one. And I maybe alluded to last week as well that maybe they might not, that they are a little bit undervalued there. They covered that game as well with the whole world on the Eagles. So maybe they're starting to pick up some steam here. Covered 2 straight, covered 3 out of the 4 as well. If you can't beat the Kingsbury could be one of the next coaches fired. He could be another one where he's just a college coach. And obviously there's been some rumblings between him and Murray, 2 kind of cocky guys going at it or whatever. But if you can't beat this Seahawks team with this defense, Kingsbury might deserve to get fired after this game. So, and it really, I mean, because the Cardinals have been lackluster for the past few years, right, Shark? Even with them having wide, I remember when they had the really loaded defense with Jefferson and stuff. But regardless, having Hopkins, one of the best receivers in the game over the past few years, this team has been very lackluster. So it's time for them to start picking up some wins. I think Kingsbury said it as well. He said it that in the last interview. We got to start getting shit clicking, man. So the Seahawks defense is. That's what the doctor ordered up, in my opinion, man. I think that the Cardinals should be able to get the Suns. Now I mess with you. The Cardinals should be able to get this one. Sorry, minus 2.5, man. I couldn't talk anyone off, man. I may have sprinkled on the Cardinals already. Shark. I'll tell you another game that. Sorry, what are we doing here, man? Mahomes, what 9-0, I believe, straight up or against the spread as a dog here. But I don't think those other situations were going up against a top dog like this. But you got the Chiefs here getting 2.5 at the house, Shark, versus the Buffalo Billies. What are we doing in this one, my brother?
Well, I mean, this is talk about a marquee showcase game here. You get a rematch of what we've discussed over and over, because how can we not continue to discuss how great of a football game that was back in January? 42-36. And really just a back and forth affair. Buffalo just high level of quality. Of course, Buffalo coming off a demolition at home. That was more representative of Pittsburgh not being very good at scoring the football and situational football with a young quarterback. Their last 2 road games were fairly lackluster. But, of course, again, go to Miami, 500-plus yards of offense and can't score more than 20 points. That's an outlier versus the data. And then the second one, obviously, go down significantly in the first half at Baltimore, and the Ravens do come back and push a -3, 23-20. They're due for a good road effort. They haven't really put one on record, obviously, in recent history. As you mentioned, Mahomes in the group, not an underdog very often. I saw a statistic or a headline saying he had never been an underdog at home or something, at least in since his rookie year or something. This is unprecedented environment here for the Chiefs to be an underdog at home. I'm not on this yet. I do think the revenge is gigantic for the Bills, and I think the Chiefs are very situational. We talked about this last week. Their best performances so far have come on the road within the NFC, a blowout at Arizona and a blowout against the Bucs. And this is kind of the converse of the motivation of that game. Jay, I believe you had Kansas City to hammer the Bucs because it was a revenge game of the Super Bowl a couple years ago. Right. This is the opposite. This is revenge off the playoff loss, which again was just an excruciating back and forth loss. So I think the psychological element here is all over the Bills. I think the line number is all over the Bills too, understanding this is an expected average. Books are telling you for the first time in a long time, a team is coming into Arrowhead and is actually a better team. So I think you're looking at the Bills here, and I think we might get there on Sunday.
Yeah, and I can tell you this as well. You remember the game that they looked like versus the Chargers as well, right? So some games the Chiefs will be really juiced up for. The game that they had circled on their calendar was versus the Bucs. Now, don't get it twisted, guys. The Chiefs aren't going to come into this game like, oh, we don't want to win the game. You know what I'm saying? They're going to want to prove that last year's game wasn't a fluke as well, because I'm sure they hear people saying, oh, if they won the coin toss, then they would have won. But regardless, man, this Bills team is literally, I really feel like they're built to beat this Chiefs team. They've added some additions in the offseason. They know the speed bump that they have to get over. This is another game this is the game. All right, just like Shark said. When Chiefs had the game circled versus the Bucs and they were locked the fuck in, weren't going to lose that game, that's kind of how I feel the Bills are going to come into this game as well. Some starters got some rest in their fourth quarter as well, so they didn't even really play a whole game last week. They really just got by the Steelers easily, Shark. I think this is a huge revenge game. I would only look towards the Bills in this game. I know that the Chiefs, Mahomes, it looks good as an underdog, but I would only look towards the Bills in this game, guys. This is a heavy spot for them, and I'd be really surprised if they didn't win this game, my guys, by over a touchdown. So, I like the Bills in this one, minus the 2.5, my guys. Last game up, Shark. We got the Philadelphia Eagles here, laying 5.5. Huge divisional matchup, man. What is this up to 6.5 now? But regardless of this, huge divisional matchup here, Shark. It's looking like it's going to be Cooper Rush once again. Dak back at practice, but limited. Looking like it's going to be Cooper Rush. Can he go 5-0 now?
It's tough. I mean, we talked about this. I keep referencing Simba, our guy, because he's a huge Cowboys fan. He's living a hell of a life right now watching this. But, he has something going on. And I don't disagree. I mean, I faded them incorrectly a couple weeks in a row. Theoretically, you would want to fade them again. I hate to say it, but you would. When you look at what's going on here, you get a pretty emphatic double revenge game. Dallas absolutely hammered Philadelphia twice last year. I mean, we're talking blowout stuff. 51-26, January 8th. I believe that was the last game of the season. Gardner Minshew was the quarterback for Philadelphia. And Dallas really hammered them in the second quarter. I believe they had 28 unanswered points in the second quarter. And then previously to that, early season, 9-27-21, Dallas did hammer them with Jalen Hurts at the helm, 41-21. So you get Dallas coming in here with 2 wins in the last 2 games by 20 and 25. And you get the number all over Philadelphia. You see what Philadelphia has been doing. You see how Philadelphia has played at home. They did cover this number against Jacksonville. They covered a slightly shorter number against Minnesota. They did hammer Washington on the road on a similar number. Dallas, it theoretically has to come to an end at some point. I would lean Philly. There's obviously the abstract, psychological, emotional element that maybe the Cooper Rush Cowboys are just playing to a totally different level, and that will continue. The lean would be Philadelphia. I'm not official yet.
Yeah, this is a tough game, man. And just a little bit inside info, guys. Michael Parsons does have a little groin injury. He's most likely going to play, but I always say with the groins, you never really know, man. I know when my groin was injured, I could barely do any fucking thing. So I can tell you that right now. But and he's the most important player for their defense on Dallas. Be interested to see if Rush can keep it up. If I can tell you who hope he doesn't, and that's Dak Prescott right there. I know that he paid $40 million a year, but I know he's like, man, look here, bro. Can you miss a few of those throws? Can y'all lose one of these games so y'all can at least be trying to get me back over there? But I don't know what to do with this game. It's going to be a really good game to watch. In all honesty, I want to lean to the under here. Divisional type of game. This is going to be a smash mouth type of football game as well. The defenses will do everything they can to keep the other offenses intact. Rush, not saying that he'll have a bad game, but I do think this will be one of his worst type of games. Not saying that the Cowboys can't win, but I do think this will be a lower scoring Super Bowl type of game, man. This game could literally decide the division, guys. And who knew that? I mean, we knew that the Eagles were going to be pretty good, but who knew that the Cowboys are going to be right here behind them ever since Dak Prescott went out? So I heavy lean to the under here, Shark. I really think we see one where the defenses show up heavy in this one, my guy. What do you think about that? Just like in general, what do you think about it under here?
I think it's a sharp look. I mean, you go back to the last couple of games, as I just mentioned, Dallas scored 51 points the last time these teams played, and they scored 28 unanswered in the second quarter. And in the previous 2 games to that, this is 3 straight games. The previous game was 41-21, finished at 62. Go back to December 2020, 37-17. So we're at 54 there, and the most recent one, 51-26. So we're at 77 points. This matchup is due to come down immensely, and I think it speaks to the style of football that Dallas is playing. They're playing good defensive football. As you mentioned, Micah Parsons with an injury, maybe in or out of the lineup. Philadelphia defends very well as well. I think the under is a solid look, but again, these are sharp lines, so they get sweaty for sure.
No, that's facts right there, man. I can't wait to watch this game. I can tell you right now, man. Cowboys winning 4 straight. Obviously, if the defense keeps to keep playing at this level, it's gonna be tough to beat them, right? You do find double revenge within the division as well. Cowboys both favorites both times last year, winning obviously 41-21, then 51-26. So 2 absolute smack city blowouts, and now you have the Eagles here laying 5.5 points. The line is all over the Eagles here. They do have double revenge within the division from previous year as well. So I like to lean towards the Eagles here. Double revenge spot, simply put, especially the number all over it. I think they were telling the line could be telling a really good story here, Shark, man. But let's get up out of here, man. Let's talk about some free NFL picks, my brothers. Like we always do, Shark. I believe you have a play on tonight's game, Thursday Night Football. Break the people off with your picks, man. Let the people know where they can find you at on the new Twitter page as well, my brother.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys bearing with the chaos. As I've mentioned, the previous account that you guys followed on Twitter got shut down because basically one guy on a fake account chirped me, I chirped back, and that was it. 4.5 years, 55,000 tweets, hundreds of $1,000s made, conversation abundance, all gone because a guy who probably spent 20 seconds in a bit of anger, and that's it. And that is a snapshot to just the absolute illogical regulation of the internet, unfortunately. So follow me again, Sharks and Sports 88 on Twitter. 88, power of the abundance. I love that number. It speaks to the universe and awareness and power. So,
I like that.
Yeah. Shark
like that.
And bro, we're both Leos. We're both Lions, 819. And that's the number, the number of the universe in Leo line. So it's powerful stuff. And I connect with you guys. Connect with Jay, of course. We have the same birthday. Maybe not coincidentally.
Right.
But that all being said, I appreciate you guys bearing with me. And of course, I know it's an annoyance. And trust me, it's more of an annoyance for me, obviously, building that up. And I had mentioned on a thing I did yesterday, I'll just mention it now. My channel is not about my ego. It's not about 41,000 followers makes me feel special or important. What it is a voice and a reach. And I love to talk to people. I love to grow the show with Jay. I love to talk to people about my thoughts. And without that, now I have to regrow it. And I have essentially to go through what I did 4 years ago again. So it's going to make me more strong as a person. Obviously wasn't expecting any of this, but I appreciate the refollow and the patience, guys. It's powerful stuff. That being said, the buy hat is engaged Thursday afternoon here at 7:02 p.m. Eastern. We're taking Washington on the road here. I got money line 115. You're looking at one line. Prices anywhere from 110 to 120 across 6 or 7 different books. Top looking spot. And I think the one situational trend that does tell you the story here more than anything, Washington is 0-4 ATS as an underdog. They've lost 4 straight ball games, all as an underdog. The only other time this year they were favored, they did win and cover the spread against Jacksonville, who I think is similarly weighted to Chicago here. And Chicago comes home off a divisional cover, which is actually a high theoretically, and it's definitely a numerical high. And they come home on a short week, and then they go right back on the road. Road, home, road, tough travel. Washington, stand up, been dominating the yardage gaps and just haven't gotten there. I think they get there tonight, 1 unit official. And top looks, just to drop here, of course, will be official Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, Sharky Waters Nation. 9 words of lifestyle, rather if you're on the water. Ravens with significance, and I'm definitely looking at the Cardinals up in Seattle with significance.
That's facts right there, man. Yeah, y'all go follow Shark as well. Shark, was you born in 88 as well?
85.
85. Okay. My brother was born in 88, man. It's been a real good luck number for me lately. I'm not sure why. I've been placing bets, all types of numerology speaking to me. That 88 has been speaking to me, man. So maybe that is a lucky number. But yeah, for me, man, when I'm looking at this week, I can tell you I already bet Bills, Cardinals, and Ravens. I'll be perfectly honest with you. Leaning towards Jags and Steelers. I'm looking at this Jags even stronger. I think there really could be some merit to them really not necessarily own. I mean, I could say owning, because that's what I'm starting to figure out. Not necessarily every time is a revenge game. Sometimes one team just owns another, and that's key for us to notice that as well, because we can literally bet them every time. If they have their number, they just have their number, man. It happens sometimes. So heavy leaning to the Jags and the Steelers in that one, but I already bet Ravens, Cardinals, Bills, my guys. Ravens team totals, got to find some type of way to get on their team totals. It's a strict fade of Giants defense coming off the London game, maybe a bit of a letdown as well, coming off that huge second half and travel across the pond with basically like 4 days of rest, my guys. So we love to do it for you guys, man. Free NFL picks every single week. NBA is starting on Tuesday. I can't freaking wait. We getting pumped up. There's a lot of money to be made, man. There's a lot of money out there. We're going to put our names on it, man. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. Let's get some cash. It's us against the bookies. Until next time, my guys. We're out. Appreciate your time.